Are you open-minded? Of course you are. You're at a TEDx talk. You all assume you're open-minded. Everyone thinks they're open-minded. You never meet anyone who doesn't think they're receptive to other ideas and open-minded. But in fact, we are all mental prisoners of our beliefs and assumptions. And they construct our mindset. And psychologists tell us that we're not particularly open-minded. We suffer from what's called the confirmation bias. And that means we accept evidence which supports our beliefs and mindset, and we reject evidence which does not support our beliefs. And this leads to some problems. One is that it's difficult for us to understand or accept people with a different mindset. Think of Democrats and Republicans in the USA, or a motorist and a cyclist on the same road, or a teenager and a human being living in the same house. They're like that, aren't they? Completely different mindsets. Another problem is that our mindsets dictate our thinking patterns. And once we get into a thinking pattern, we tend to go into a routine and stay with that pattern. We're a bit like the computer programmer who was found lying dead in his shower. He was holding a very large bottle of shampoo on which were written the instructions, lather, rinse, repeat. And the poor man had been caught in an infinite loop. And we're a little bit like that. We go round and round doing the same thing over and over. Thinking patterns can be useful. So if you're making an aeroplane, you want to follow a pattern. And you want to have something predictable. You don't want variation. But if you want to design something that's beyond an aeroplane, you need a different method. And typically what we do is we take our thinking pattern and then we try to extend it to find new solutions. So if your thinking pattern is the aeroplane, you might want to extend it. But you can't extend an aeroplane into a helicopter. You can't extend an aeroplane into a space rocket. They're fundamentally different means of propulsion, different models. And just extending your current method of thinking isn't sufficient to get breakthrough ideas and creative problem solving. You have to do a little bit of lateral thinking. In 2009, a man called Travis Kalanick was in Paris. He couldn't get a taxi. That was the problem. There weren't enough taxis in Paris. Now, if you extend our current mindset, our current thinking, you'd say, well, we need more taxis, or we can catch the bus, or we can get the metro, or we can walk. But he thought, no. Is there a better way to do this? Is there an entirely different way to solve this problem? Could we somehow harness all the unused capacity of all the drivers in Paris who'd be quite happy to give me a lift if I paid them? He founded Uber, the fastest growing startup in the world, by thinking differently, by breaking the conventional mindset. So there's lots of different ways to do lateral thinking, but I'm going to share with you this morning 3 tips to help you break thinking patterns and challenge your mindset. And the first of those is this. Take a different view. Change your routine. If you normally read the Daily Mail, read the Guardian or the New York Times. If you normally watch CNN, watch Al Jazeera. If you normally go to the bridge club, go to the jazz club. Changing your routine helps to change your mindset. David Bowie was a great creative thinker, great innovator, very musical genius. And there's a line in one of his songs, Changes, which goes like this: turn and face the strange. And that's what I want you to do, to turn and face the strange. Until the early 1950s, there was only one television station in the UK, the BBC. And then in 1953, the government decided to auction licenses for commercial TV stations by region. A lot of companies thought this was a fantastic opportunity to sell advertising on TV for the first time. So they put teams of analysts on the case to determine which regions has the best demographics, the wealthiest people who would generate the most advertising revenue. There was a small chain of cinemas in the south of England called Granada Cinemas, run by a man called Sidney Bernstein. And he said to his team, he said, I'd like to bid for one of these regions. He said, but I don't want you to find me the richest region in the UK. I want you to find me the wettest region in the UK. They went away and they came back and they said, well, the area with the most precipitation per head of population is the northwest of England. He said, right, let's bid for that. And they got it. They got Liverpool and Manchester and Bolton and Bury and all those places. And he'd realised there's no point in getting Brighton in the southeast of England If the weather's lovely and people are out in the garden or they've gone to walk their dog in the park, you want somewhere where it's pouring down outside and people stay in to watch TV. And the point of the story is this: when everyone else is looking for the richest, the lateral thinker deliberately looks in a different direction for the wettest. Turn and face the strange. Jonas Salk was the researcher who found the polio vaccine. And he was asked afterwards, how did you come up with this solution to the big problem of polio? And he said, I didn't think like a doctor. I didn't think like a researcher. I had to think like a polio virus. I had to imagine I was the virus in the body. And by thinking that way, I was able to conceive something that would defeat it. So that's the first piece of advice. Turn and face the strange. The second I would share with you is this. Deliberately introduce the random. Now, we think we can handle random, but in fact, we're not very good at random. So think of a random number between 1 and 20, please. Think of a random number. Quickly, have you all thought of one? Yes? Good? Got a number in your mind? Well, there's about 100 people in the audience, so if it was truly random, there'd be about 5 people for each number. So how many chose number 1? Nobody. How many chose number 20? Nobody. Number 19? 1 or 2. Who chose number 7? Quite a few. For some reason, 7's a very attractive number. There's 7 days in the week, 7 wonders of the world. David Beckham wore 7. I don't know why it is, but when we think we're doing stuff that's random, we don't. I said to my wife the other day, I said, I met this random chap at the golf club. We got on really well. She said, let me guess. Is he white? Yes. Is he middle-aged? Yes. Is he middle class? Yes. Does he like golf? Yes. She said, he's not random. He's just like you. No wonder you got on well. All right. So we've got to find different ways of meeting random people or doing random things. Hans Christian Andersen was a great Danish writer. He wrote fantastic fairy stories. And when he was a young man, he used to go with his grandmother, who was a gardener at a lunatic asylum. And he'd go and he'd meet the patients at the lunatic asylum, and he would listen to their wild stories and ramblings. And that fueled his imagination. And from that, we got The Princess and the Pea, Thumbelina, The Little Mermaid, The Snow Queen. And The Snow Queen was the inspiration for Disney's film Frozen. So Frozen came from The Snow Queen, which may have come from the lunatic asylum. And that explains a lot, really, doesn't it, when you think about it? Like why that song drives you mad. Let it go, Paul, let it go. Now, when I do my corporate workshops, when I work with corporate clients to solve big challenges, one of the techniques we use, one of the lateral thinking techniques that I turn to, is the use of the random word. And, or a random object you can use, or a random song, a random picture. These all work, but a random word is one of the most powerful. The way it works is you take the challenge, then you take the word, and you get some associations of the word, and then you try to force ideas from the word to the challenge. Is that clear? No. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to try and demonstrate this to you. This is where it could all go horribly wrong. This is the riskiest part of the whole morning, but I'm going to take a dictionary, and a small dictionary is best. So the big dictionary's got a lot of obscure words in it, and you open it at random, and the first noun, you look for a noun, and the noun is peal. The sound of ringing bells. A set of bells with different notes. A loud burst of thunder or laughter. All right, so that's the starting point. And say the challenge is we're Brighton tourists, but we want to attract more visitors to Brighton. How can we invite more visitors to Brighton based on the sound of ringing bells, a loud burst of thunder or laughter? So that's the challenge. Well, straight away the laughter suggests something to me. The laughter suggests comedy. So we could have the Brighton Comedy Festival. And in the Brighton Comedy Festival, you can either have a big show with lots of comics, or you can have lots of little shows, like at the Edinburgh Fringe, the Brighton Fringe, the Brighton Comedy Fringe. What else could we do? Well, the bell ringers, we could have an international bell ringing competition. We could invite bell ringing teams from all around the world, and we could line them up on the promenade. As you're walking down Brighton Promenade, they're all ringing the bells. What else does peal suggest to you? Anybody? Orange. Orange peel, yeah. So we could have the Brighton Orange Week. Every visitor to Brighton, when they arrive in the hotel room, they get an orange. All right? And They eat the, and then we collect the orange peel. What could we do with orange peel? We could make a cake, the Brighton cake, the Brighton orange cake. We could make a liqueur, Brighton liqueur. We could have Brighton Orange Week. Everybody wears orange, and we have orange. The whole thing could be around orange and peel. Do you see how it works? Or anything else from peel? Peel your clothes off. Yeah, we could have the Brighton nudist beach. Is there a nudist beach in Brighton? Yes? You've been there, have you, madam? What's it like? Very stony? Yes. So do you see how it works? You take a word at random. Some words work really well, others don't. Obscure words tend to give you one or two ideas. Common words give you lots of different ideas. When it works, you get really creative ideas from it. So that's the random. And the third tip I would give you is this. Welcome the unexpected. Serendipity and lateral thinking are natural partners. They go together. Serendipity gives us opportunities. When something unexpected or surprising happens, we tend to treat it as an annoyance, as a distraction. It's stopping us from getting on with the job. But very often it's an interesting piece of input that we should analyze and look at. In 1928, a young Scottish bacteriologist came back from his holiday. And he noticed that one of his Petri dishes in his laboratory had a strange growth in it, a fungus growing in it. In the early 1940s, a Swiss engineer went for a walk with his dog in the Jura Mountains. When he came back, he noticed that his trousers and the dog's fur were covered in little tiny plant burrs, little seed cases. In the late 1940s, an engineer working at Raytheon on active radar tubes noticed that a sweet in his pocket melted when he standing next to the radar tube. Now, you and I might treat that as something annoying. All right, the dirty Petri dish, we've got to wash it out before we can start again. All those burrs in the trousers, we've got to brush them out. How annoying. Sticky mess in my pocket, I'm going to have to send it to the dry cleaners. But fortunately for us, the protagonists in those incidents welcomed the unexpected, investigated what was happening, and acted. In the first case, it was Sir Alexander Fleming, and when he examined the mold in the Petri dish, he saw that it was rejecting bacteria. He discovered penicillin. He gave us the world's first antibiotic, and from that chance happening, millions of lives were saved. In the second case, the man was Georges de Mestral, and when he examined the plant burrs under his microscope, he saw that they were hooked into the fabric with little tiny hooks. And he invented a new method of fastening fabric, Velcro. Velcro comes from the French. Velours, crochet, a velvet hook. The third example was Percy Spencer. When he was working on a microwave tube, he noticed that the sweet in his pocket melted. He created the world's first microwave oven. So when something unexpected or surprising happens, don't get annoyed, get curious. It's a great opportunity. Okay, so I want to summarize. If you want to break out of your current mindset, if you want to break thinking patterns, I'm advising you to try three things. First of all, deliberately turn and face the strange. Point in a different direction, look in a different direction, change your routine. Secondly, introduce the random. A random word, a random picture. Do you know if you go onto Wikipedia, one of the menu items is random article of the day? Click on that. Take you somewhere different, something you've never seen before. And thirdly, welcome the unexpected. When something surprising happens, don't get annoyed, get curious. I want to leave you with one final thought, and it's this. I want you to imagine you're a teacher at an English school 170 years ago. You're taking the boys for a game of football when all of a sudden one of the boys picks up the ball and starts to run with it. Something surprising, something unexpected. What would you do? I think 99 people out of 100 would say, Webb Ellis, that's the boy's name. You know the rules, that's a foul. You've got to put the ball down and kick it. But that teacher took that idea, discussed it with the other teachers, and gave back to the world a game named after that school. Rugby. And out of rugby, we've got American football and Australian rules football. The World Rugby Cup is called the William Webb Ellis Trophy in honor of the boy who first picked up a ball. But what would you have done? Would you have welcomed the unexpected or rejected it? because I think that is a good test of whether you really are open-minded. Thank you.